Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. It is another episode of C Talk presented to you by Sports Tech Atlanta. The podcast that keeps you rolling, brings the common sense to the uncommon game out here with a lot of things that are rolling on. We're coming to you right after the US Open. Golf is popping, women's basketball is popping, NASCAR is popping, basketball is popping. It's that time frame in the summer where you think it's starting to cool down and you're like, you know what? All I got is MLB, and I don't know if I can watch 9 innings through its entirety. Like, can I stay up? What else is out there? Le Mans just happened. I don't watch tennis. Nadal is going away. But there is some heat out here that we are going to make sure that you are aware of, as well as the funding rounds that have been popping off and where we're at right now when it comes to sports and technology. Sterling, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah. A tough one. Yeah, it is. It does feel like we're in that midst of the summer lull. People start to go on vacation. You start to kind of do some other things, but then you're like, yeah, there's the Euros are obviously on right now. The Olympic trials, I believe, kicked off on Friday. They should start up here again tonight on NBC, which is exciting. Obviously for the Olympics here coming up in Paris in a month. So yeah, it's weird. To your point, it's like football and basketball. Obviously, basketball's about to die down here. And then to your point, you're like, I don't really want to watch baseball. As I played baseball, and I don't even want to watch baseball.
I know we got your jersey in the back. It's one of those tough things. Like I think it's exciting, especially when you got the lead in, I'd say, for women's softball for College World Series, and then you have men's baseball for the College World Series. I think the series have been electric. If you guys have been paying attention there, but it's also doesn't get the promotion that it should, because you got future first round picks, and then also with Athletes Unlimited, some of those women that'll turn professional there because there's no league like the MLB particularly for softball, but you get to see some exciting stuff. I love the College World Series when it comes to softball. Great athletes, great plays that you kind of routinely start to see. So on top ESPN top 10. So yeah, it is one of those time frames, man. And there's been some heartbreak out here. It's tough when you have, let's say you're in the lead, whether if you're up in the series 1-0, you can let a team come back in College World Series wise regionally before the College World Series. Now you're out of it. Same thing when it goes to the softball side of things. You just had somebody just have a tough outing when it comes to golf. If you're a part of that world, and his name is Rory McIlroy. Congratulations to Bryson DeChambeau. You know what I love? Everybody's either like DeChambeau or they want to make themselves seem very cultured, so they want to go real hard on the inflection when it comes to the DeChambeau. Making it sound like I talk to French people. I have French friends. I'm cultured out here, but it's always funny hearing to say that. But yeah, shout out to Bryson. What'd you think of the US Open, man? We're coming fresh off of it, and I thought it was, brought the eyeballs, and it was electric for what you wanted to have on a Sunday as you're sitting back on a nice Father's Day weekend. So what were your thoughts on the Open?
Yeah, I mean, it made it fun because it's so difficult, right? I mean, you could land the ball in the middle of the green and it might trickle off, into a bunker or just off of the fringe or something like that. So it made it fun knowing how hard the course was. I think for me, being a fan of Rory, going into today, he's 3 shots back. He birdies 1, has a bogey on the par 5, and then strings together all these birdies. And next thing you know, he's at -8 with a 2-shot lead. And the next thing you know, he starts to trick it away. And you just feel for him because the weight of how good he was when he first came onto the scene. And you're like, oh, he's the heir apparent to Tiger. And he has not been able to win another major since 2014. It's tough. It's just tough to continue to watch him put himself in position in some of these tournaments and have a really, really good shot and not be able to close the door. And to me, this is one of those where I just checked Twitter before we started recording. He left, did not talk to the media. just signed his card and jumped in the car and got away. This one would hurt, man. This one would sit with you for a while because you're finally you keep yourself in contention. You play we just talked about how hard that course is. You manage it through the 3 days. You have you hit a couple putts, and next thing you know, you look up at the leaderboard. You're like, oh man, I got a 2-shot lead, and then to lose it in that fashion. And I saw this stat before we jumped on. He had not missed a putt within 5 feet all year long, right? He was 496 or 496, misses 2 there to close it out, but then in the last 3 holes, which causes him to have bogeys on those on 18 and then on 16, missing those 2 short par putts. And Bryson makes a great save out of the woods. He didn't hit a fairway all day, and he was able to scramble, make that play. So yeah, it's just tough to see a guy that I think is carried. I think the broadcast kind of said it. I would say he is the most well-known golfer and probably most popular golfer outside of Tiger, he being Rory.
Yeah.
And I think he's just carried the weight of the PGA, obviously everything with Liv. And so for him not to just be able to win one of these, I know he won a tournament. He's won a tournament this year, won a tournament last year as well, but just hasn't been able to close in a major. It's hard to see as a fan of his and wanting to see him kind of break through.
Yeah. Rory's got to look at it through this lens. And he's got to stay upbeat because he's played well all year. In the past month and a half, he's coming off of 1 victory and versus a good field. You show up to the U.S. Open, you storm back, tied for 4th, essentially, 2nd, 4th, however they like to really call that, heading into the day at 4 under. Tied at 4 under with 3 other folks. And then you take the lead at 7 under. More so to what Bryson wasn't doing. So the positive thing is if Bryson really played his game and he actually started choking. If there's anybody, I don't consider what Rory did a choke. I do think he let it slip through his fingers after grasping the moment and seizing the moment and really putting
Hold on, but you can't say that.
I'm not saying that he's full on choking. I am saying he stormed back. There was nothing for him to lose on that day because he was second regardless, 2nd and 4th, whatever. It was Bryson's to lose. Bryson was losing it. If you look at his reaction on 16 or 15 when he had that 4-foot putt, if you could have a Richter scale, that man's arms were full on shaking. And he just lucked it in, and he had one of those, oh my God, thank God moments. And that was where it kind of tipped the scale, I think, for Bryson, where he was like, you know what, I'm shaky, but as long as I can hold on, I might be okay. And then he saw Rory then bogey going from 7 under to 6 under, and then they started just kind of trading off. It was like a battle of attrition on bogeys. Who could just save a par, and that's what ended up winning it. And yeah, everybody's going to say Rory choked it. I'm just going to say it's not like he egregiously missed these putts. Yes, you're right. He was 100% going into it. So you would naturally assume and believe he choked it. The pressure got to him. And I agree with you. He's carried the weight of Liv. He's carried the weight of having to deal with Jay Monahan, whatever, and how he handled everything and being the poster child of we're staying on the PGA because the PGA's right. And now you're out here trying to win a tournament. You're getting axed out of the Masters. You're missing cuts a little bit. Then you're starting to storm back. Then you had the stuff internally with his wife, and you're battling and rallying in the last 2 months of a lot of stuff happening, from wins, divorce, no divorce. Now you're up here, we're almost about to win. I think he's got to look at it through a positive lens. That's a tough day. I understand it. It's going to be tough for him tonight, maybe through the rest of the week, but he's got to look at it through a different lens than where everybody else is going to look at him for. I don't think he choked it away. It was a moment to grasp. He didn't seize it. Yes, you're right. He is Rory. I would say that's where you see the difference between a Tiger Woods and the rest of the field. No one can replicate the eye of the tiger and just how laser focused that man got, and the fear that he put in everybody else, and just being able to ride the crowd. Rory tried to do that on that par 3 where he ended up birdieing on 9, and then he tried to use that crowd noise to fluster Bryson. Well played by him. That's a veteran move. But that course played extremely hard. That was the first time I think you could really see the undulations in the green by the dark green that you would see. And if you're like, hey, if you hit that dark green, you're gone. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how slow it's going. It's a false front. It's rolling right off. So I mean, it was a really tough course. Feel for Rory. I am not going to say that he choked it away. I want to say that he didn't grasp the moments that he had that presented himself from the leader choking it away. And now he came up second and still is on a 10-year drought.
But it's hard to say he didn't choke when he was up 2, right? He's up 2 with 5 holes to play.
2 or 1? Was it?
He was up 2. He got 8.
He got 8. Yeah, 8 under to 6 under.
Bryson was at 6.
Yeah.
Because Bryson missed that.
Was choking it because Bryson was choking, and then
I mean he didn't hit a fairway all day. I mean he was in the sand and just like in the brush and I mean he was scrambling all day long. And to your point, yeah, it felt like if Bryson just played a normal day, maybe Rory isn't even there, right? If he's able to just put the balls in the fairway and give himself opportunities for birdie. But I think that's the thing that's got to hurt for Rory is like I played a really, really good Sunday, right? Started to your point, started at 4 under, makes this charge, and then to lose it in that way, to lose the lead in that way, and then on 18 to miss again, it's tough.
Yeah. It should have been a playoff. Like Bryson did enough to allow a playoff.
It should have been a playoff.
It should have been a playoff. That's the thing that's going to kill Rory because Rory knows if it was Rory versus DeChambeau, which is what everybody wanted to see because DeChambeau was losing it. And that's why it was so big for him to put it in for 4 feet away from 50 yards away because he was losing it. He was struggling. It was tough. And he got lucky that Rory ended up missing that putt. That moment might have got big for Rory, which is surprising. But I wouldn't say that he choked it away from coming from where he was. If he was the out front unanimous leader there coming into the day, I would say, yeah, it's a choke job. But, shoot, tough job at the office a little bit. But great. I mean, it makes for great, exciting conversation. I mean, I'm curious to see how everybody's going to talk about this during the week because there's going to be a lot of talking heads. I think, shout out again to Bryson for taking the U.S. Open, the 124th U.S. Open Championship. And we'll see what happens next year. I do have a quick question for you because I was going to throw it on, but I didn't. And it's regards to this man. And it's just we'll hit this for about 30 seconds.
Okay.
Does Tiger need to go to live? And I asked this question purely not from a monetary standpoint, but to get the reps that he needs to then be able to play in the majors because he's only slated to play in 5 or 6 tournaments a year now, maybe 8, but I think it's scaled back. If he goes to live, he gets the reps versus a competitive field, and it's a shorter weekend, and his body can stay in tune. Should Tiger ultimately go to live so that he can at least try and eclipse the GOAT, Mr. Jack Nicklaus?
No, obviously he and Rory have their league that starts up in January of 25.
I don't think it's ever going to take off. I don't think it's ever going to happen.
It will, right? Remember they were good. They're supposed to start this year.
TGL.
Yeah, they're supposed to start this year.
Yeah.
They had an issue with their structure. It ends up having some issues. So then they push it back a year. They've already got the contract with ESPN. We've talked about it on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing there to your question, I agree on one side, right? Not on the live aspect of it, but on the aspect of Tiger needs to it feels like, and I know we all want him to win one more, or maybe see if he has got a chance to make a little run here to tie Jack.
Mm-hmm.
But his body, the car crash, I feel like took that away. Like his leg, his back, he just will never be the same, right? Obviously, winning the Masters in 2019 felt like something that maybe we didn't think we would see. And when he did it, you're like, oh, maybe he's got a chance. Maybe he can come back. He knows the Masters so well. Right, that gives him opportunities. There's other courses that he knows really well. Like maybe, right?
Yeah.
But I think the car crash took that away. I just don't feel like for 4 days his body can hold up enough to walk. And these courses are so long now, right? To walk it and to try to put yourself in a chance to win against these guys. I just don't think it's possible. Now, what I do think is cool about what they're going to do, right, is the way that their league is set up is it's virtual with the ability to like, you go from virtual to like in person, like within 150 yards in, I think, or something like that. Right.
Right.
So I think that's cool. And you'll get to see like, because the thing for Tiger is his hands are so good and he can still shape
he's got it there. He's got it all.
He can still do that and still can do that at a high level. And I think for fans, it'll be cool to kind of see him because then he can kind of compete, right? You can see him compete in that way. I just, I don't know. I've thought about this a little bit lately, especially getting a chance to watch him out here at his tournament at Riviera. It's like, can he just go to Germany or Turkey or wherever they do these surgeries? Can we refuse his body back together and he takes just a year off and then tries? I think the tough thing is he's so competitive and he wants to be out there, and I applaud that, right?
Yeah.
I just don't think I just think it's tough, man. Let me also add, I think for him and for Rory and for some of these guys, the PGA means more to them than it ever would, obviously the money and everything that comes with LIV. I think
I agree with that. And that's what I'm saying. It's not a monetary thing. It's so purely like Tiger didn't leave, obviously, because the PGA saved his life and career after the accident and the divorce with his wife, in the way that America, who saw the golden child of somebody who was literally perfect in a lot of people's eyes, had a tarnished image. And I think a lot of things were sliding downhill, and you had the PGA and the Masters, although admonishing Tiger, still backing and staying with him. Because what was the biggest discussion? He was Nike's first billion-dollar athlete, and Nike was saying he's potentially on the chopping block, depending on where I want to say opinions are shifting.
Nike was never going to.
Sterling, you have to really
obviously now
really go back to the moment. Yeah, really go back to the moment. A lot of stuff. A lot of
people said some things, right? And some people backed away from him.
A lot of people, but the PGA stayed behind. PGA stayed behind. The Masters stayed behind.
But I think you got to think about where we were in society and like how we talked about things and how we talked about, cheating and those type of affairs. Also, the fact that
there were morals. There were a lot more morals back then.
Yeah, but also like we didn't
today's standards.
The way people talked about those things was in this very clutching of pearls type of way, as opposed to just having a conversation like, yeah, he cheated and that's between he and his wife, right? Now, there also was
the morality level and what was deemed taboo then versus today. I think the spectrum and the scale is different. It's shifted. It's more laissez. It's very more laissez now, or laissez-faire.
But we also have to call out like the fact that, to your point, they put him on a pedestal as the golden child. He also was married to, is she Swedish? To
Eileen, something like that, maybe. Black man and a Swedish woman. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was also that, and
there's got to be something about this black man that we can pin on him, because he can't be this perfect. And then finally got it.
There was also that, right? But I just think like, I don't know about saved him. I do think he has respect for what golf is and what the PGA has been for a long time. And I think that's what I respect about him and Rory is like, it wasn't ever about the money. It wasn't ever about there were different ways in which we could have gone about and making, obviously infusing more money into golf, and also maybe making different formats or having different tournament type of styles. Right.
Yeah.
Without tarnishing what the PGA is and taking people away from that. And I think that was always bigger to them, which I respect.
Yeah. I don't know. I think he just needs to, maybe it'll be in TGL, but needs to figure out a way to get the consistency and the reps in, because even though Barry went to a DH, Barry Bonds, he still had that regular schedule, and that body was getting old so that he could break the record. So you just got to continue to reps. You can't come out here thinking that you can.
Barry was never a DH. There was no DH in the NL at that time.
Oh, no, wasn't it DH?
Not in the NL.
No, why did that matter? Because I was thinking with when he was starting to age up and what they were doing for him so that he could last, because or was it just sitting him? I was thinking it was something along the lines of because Barry didn't play every single game, but they still had him on a good rotation so that his so that his bat and timing and everything is still there. My point of Tiger not being able to just show up to go against the best in the world, thinking that he can just do what he did in the past without having the consistency and reps outside of the practice rounds and the range a little bit.
But it's not that. I mean, he showed up to Pinehurst like a week ago. It's not the preparation. It's the
playing. I know.
No, it's not the playing.
It is the playing. It's the playing for 4 days. Or 3 days, which goes to the live. That's my point. But
we're saying two different things, right? It's not his actual play. It's the fact that he cannot get around the course.
Right.
And I don't think that's changing.
That's what I've been saying. I said he has the hands, but he needs to continue to have the reps over. That's why I'm saying the 2.5 3-day course.
It's not the reps.
We are saying the same thing. It's the reps over a span of 4 days, Sterling, and it goes with the body.
Reps. And that's his body breaking down. And it's nothing to do with the reps.
It's reps in strength and repetition, Sterling. That's the whole point. Yes. Yes, it is. It's the same.
What the issue is. The issue is like body to get around the course.
Sterling. If you played basketball and you continuously played in a few games, what happens to your body? It gets into game shape. You have to be able to get the reps to get into game shape.
It's not the same thing.
Yes, you can't just show up and play a 7-game series after sitting out for 2 months, Sterling. What you talking about? You can't do that. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I've been saying this whole time.
That's fine, but that's not the issue. I just said
the issue. We're talking about the same. We're literally saying the same thing. We're talking the same.
We're not saying the same thing, and
we're saying the same thing.
He was at the same thing a week before,
just shooting. It's leisurely shooting. You need to have in-game reps. Is the whole point, Sterling. We're saying the same thing. You're just saying we're saying it two different ways. We're saying the same thing.
We're not. Okay.
All right. That was supposed to be 30 seconds. Now we went too long on Tiger. That was supposed to be a 30-second thing, Sterling. Thanks for taking us over because somebody too long-winded.
Okay.
But when it comes to sports, I mean, as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, it's exciting when we talk about sports. We get into it because this is the same conversation you're going to have in the barbershop, maybe the salon. I hope so. The salon right now, you know what's popping in the salon? Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese. That's popping, but the sports conversations are continuing to roll left and right everywhere because it gets fiery. Sterling think he's right. I think I'm always right because I am always right. If I might be wrong, but I doubt it. If I take a slogan from Charles Barkley and his famed book, but a lot of hot discussions. We were planning. We might have to do this on a side segment. We wanted to jump into the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese. I love the WNBA where they're at right now. But what we're going to do is jump into kind of our main topic and story for today and discussion. And we'll wrap it up with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. So if you want to stick around for that, just make sure to listen through to the end so you can kind of hear our take because it's been it's very concerning conversations and talk that you have out there. And, I think like we said at the opening of the show, we bring common sense to an uncommon world. But when it comes to the influx of excitement, that means there's an influx of cash that comes into the sports world. Sterling, what did you see out here?
Yeah, I got a few here we'll call out. And then we got just a larger topic to talk through in terms of equity in teams. It's such a big deal right now. Just like, people looking to get into being the owners within sports clubs and teams, not just here, but also in Europe. So we're just going to talk through that a little bit. But the first one that I wanted to call out was Whoosh, which is the most advanced club operations software solution. They announced a $10.3 million Series A funding round was led by Alley Corp. A couple additional investors included 8VC, Craft Ventures, Eber Capital, and the Raptor Group. And so I think what's cool here is they've remained pretty steadfast in creating the most intuitive, operations and hospitality solutions for private golf and racket clubs. So the business has evolved to become the best-in-class provider for the industry, powering the most premier clubs and top 100 golf courses in the country. A couple other notable investors in this are Larry Fitzgerald, Alison Lee, Kurt Kitayama, Andy Roddick, and Mike Walrath. So really cool there. Definitely check them out if you obviously within a golf course or need club operations. Definitely check out what Whoosh is doing there. Another one I wanted to call out. I ran into these guys at the Indie Techstars event last summer. So RootNote, which is a growing provider of business intelligence for sports, media, and entertainment companies, has raised $1.5 million in a pre-seed funding round led by indie-based Elevate Ventures. They were previously in a beta stage, and the company is opening the platform to a wider audience here soon. So shout out to Jason and the team there at RootNote. Excited for them and to kind of see their continued growth there with that pre-seed funding round. The last one I'll call out is this was probably from a few weeks ago, so you probably might have saw this out there. But Spidio, which is a Swedish firm that makes AI-powered video and analytics software used by teams in the NBA, NHL, English Premier League, secured a $20 million venture capital investment led by Scipio Partners, including Matthias Kamprad, which is the billionaire son of the founder of the retail giant IKEA. So Spidio makes automated video products for sports applications, including providing multi-angle replay for officials and for use in player training. So every stadium in the NWSL, for example, has Spidio camera systems installed. And among its other 4,000 clients, the company recently started a deal with ESPN using Spidio camera systems to automatically stream the 400 Scholastic games it hosts at its Orlando Wide World of Sports facility each week. So pretty cool here. It's something that I think you'll start to see more of this, right? A lot of, obviously AI is a huge buzzword right now within tech, but video and analytics being kind of fused together and making it easier to be able to broadcast, stream, cut up, and do things with video. Obviously video and data are kind of king right now. And so seeing something like that out in the market, really cool what they are doing and capturing. And obviously investors feel the same way with that $20 million investment there. So I wanted to get into, I just find it interesting right now. And I just wanted to have, I think our deep dive of the week here is really just kind of talk through investing in sports, right? It's a growing asset class. You're seeing more people get involved with it and into it. And I think it's something that I feel like, maybe some people are kind of talking about, but I feel like we've tried to talk about a little bit on this podcast. And I feel like we wanted to do a sort of a deep dive here. So I'm going to give off a few stats here and we'll just kind of flow from there. So a couple things about really, I think just the shifting of why this has been such a big deal here is for decades, sports leagues in the U.S. and abroad historically only allowed private, really ultra high net worth individuals to own shares in teams, which I think really created a bubble. It took a lot of people kind of outside that, right? And that started to dissipate. So now things are a little bit open. It's easier to kind of get into that group, right? And I think the interest involved in it, kind of what we just kind of talked about, right? There's so many aspects of being able to not only be a part of the ownership group, but being able to partner and create really driving revenue generation with things like streaming, sports betting, sponsorships, and intellectual property, right? A lot of the data involved in this. And so you're seeing more private equity firms, you're seeing more angel type of investments getting involved into these leagues right now, which is really cool. So if you think about it, like the NFL, which does not allow any private equity in it, but the NBA, MLB, NHL, and MLS all do, which I think is kind of interesting, right? So the NBA right now is about 30% that's eligible for sale from a private equity perspective. So does the MLB, NHL, and MLS. And so you're thinking about that, and you're like, man, the ability for you now to kind of get a small group together and get involved has now really changed right now. That's why you see LeBron's a part of a group and Westbrook and all these other guys, right? Because they're saying, hey, this asset class is something that before we could never get into. And now we're able to see, one, the fact that these sports franchises are outpacing the S&P 500, And so, all right, can we get in at a lower amount, quote unquote, right? From a minority perspective, and then obviously see your returns in a huge way. So yeah, I think it's something interesting that we've really kind of been tracking on here. We've got a few past episodes where we kind of talk about this as well. But not just here in America. I think that's the other part of this is you're seeing so many more investments into the Europe and really kind of abroad markets, right? Even cricket in India and things like that. Like people are finding alternative ways into ownership and looking for that value that really wasn't there, I would say, in previous decades.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're at a really interesting time period, and it's good and bad because on one hand, and I think right now, obviously, the biggest league being the NFL, not allowing private equity because they're the big stick. They can set the market and set the landscape about how they would like revenue to flow into the league. Because when everybody, they like the movie Concussion says, they own a day of the week. Like they might shift at some point to have President's Day, and is it President's Day that comes right after the Super Bowl? It's one of those like kind of holidays when people don't really have it off. But long story short, they're going to probably end up having a day off for the America because the game has gotten so big and it is now turned into a spectacle of folks going and doing party, blah, 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 blah. So I think it's awesome that you're looking at sports being the best way to pay dividends in your portfolio. Caveat, if you have the means. So I like it for a way that a lot of these, I think it's twofold. I like it for the way that, you're going to continue to see increasing wages for, I think, a lot of these players as TV streaming and revenue and rights continue to go up. I don't know where they're printing money, where they're getting it from, but whatever. Wages within arenas are going to continue to hopefully rise because you're having the continued backing of these equity firms. So when you're looking at the trickle down of the influx of cash, I think there are some net positives. What concerns me, though, when we head into this route is how does, let's say, because I think it's an interesting point that this outpaces the S&P. Like you would look at these charts and say this has got it's got to be a Bernie Madoff pyramid scheme, because there's no way that you shouldn't have a dip or some type of correction within the profits that you're bringing in for each of these leagues year over year. I want to say since 2005, somewhere around there, the past 20 years, doesn't follow the market trends. So right now it's setting itself in a whole new class for where sports are, because really sports cannot fail. We've built it up in such a way worldwide, with the US being the model, that if you build it, people will come, in the words of the Field of Dreams. Because what do people look at sports when you come to the middle class area, middle class consumer? It's where I go to get away from my last week's problem or my week problem. If I'm going to a weekday baseball game, I can share it with my family. I can share it with my friends. It's something that I can talk about with my extended friends and family as well. So it is a way to now have the gathering hole, but the gathering hole is built inside of a multi-billion-dollar facility. So sports is never going to go away, and there's going to be a continued initiative to continue to fund and propel these leagues in a certain way. So I'm curious, and I guess, do you see this is the only, I think, stable asset, which is obviously it's private and there's no public funding. So it's not like you could do an S&P 500 off of sports, but like, do you think an asset class somehow should be developed so that now you can bring the retail investor in as well for the league as a whole? So I think that in turn then you could turn it into like an S&P 500 itself off of the basis of these 5 leagues. And it's kind of like a gold standard essentially, because they're not going to fade. You can have the trust in their economics for each league, and they're not going to fold. sans, I mean, depending on how you went through the WNBA in, because they're subsidized by the NBA, MLS potentially too, but they have some good TV rights. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts there? I'll ask you that, and you can tell me in a second. But then, like I said, I think it's a good thing for the sports world, because there's going to be continued growth. But I do see some concern, because now, let's say NBA owners, I was going to bring up the old regime for the Hawks, but with the influx in cash, you can continue to break down their percentage. I think it's 20% or 30% 20% is eligible for equity firms to invest in NBA teams. As long as they're bringing in money, owners essentially can become oligarchs in these leagues, because to the I don't know, are there boards for these teams? I'm not really sure, but at the end of the day, they're bringing in most likely a net positive.
Depends how it's structured. But yeah, I mean, I think no. I guess just a quick answer to your question about the retail investor side. No, I mean, this is a special asset class, right? And I think before, people used to buy these teams, and like it was kind of a rich way to be like, or for rich people to be like, hey, like it's like a cool thing, like I own this team. Right now, I think there's just so many different aspects of it. And because as you kind of said there, right, these leagues and teams, the values just continue to go up, right? I mean, Ballmer paid $3 billion for the Clippers. I mean, if the Knicks or Cowboys sold, I mean, they're going to be $5 billion. When Jerry Jones bought the Cowboys, I think he bought them for like $50 million or something, right?
Yeah,
90 million, something like that, right?
Might be even less, honestly.
So it's something that is this really, really special asset class, and why people are trying to break into it, and why private equity wants to break into it in so many ways. I think you said a couple of things that are interesting, and I did want to kind of hit a couple of things there. One is just on the fact that and I kind of said it there in my preamble, if you will. The streaming aspect, there's just so many ways that you could look at, like, how do you want to make money off of this, right? And the streaming aspect has now added something different. You saw what the NBA did, right? They were like, we're going to get $7 billion. However we get it, right? We'll break it up in a way. I mean, you're going to see from this TV deal with the NBA, right? They're like, someone like a Jaylen Brown's going to be making $90 million, or Anthony Edwards. Like, that's crazy to say, right? But that's just how the TV money is going to shake out here, and how that percentage of the revenue that the league is bringing in has to go to the players, right? And that's just, it's wild. Another thing to think about is the WNBA. Yeah, they've been carried for a long time by the NBA, but because of Caitlin Clark, and I know we're going to do a little thing here at the end with her, I mean, their TV deal used to be around $40-50 million. Their new rights deal is going to be around $240 million, right? That's a huge increase here in what that is. And hey, now
house husbands out there, get ready. Get ready, house husbands. It's coming. Your time is now. You know what I'm saying? Wait for wifey to show up off the plane coming back from Memphis. You're going to be like, I got food on the table for you. What? You need your feet rubbed? I am here for you. House husbands. It's our time.
Tweets, the Cameron Brink like tweets are that they're hilarious. I mean, it's just like this.
By the way, it was Mike Conley's contract, remember, for the Grizzlies, $152 million. This is before we had the new TV rights deal, and everybody was like, Mike Conley making $152? Yeah, like you're saying, to your point, contracts just continue to skyrocket.
So I forget what the joke was, right? But because like, what is Christian McCaffrey's new deal, right? What's he making? Like 16 million a year.
We have to go to our production assistant. What's our PA? Our PA is saying 4 year, $64 million contract. No, sorry, that was what the Panthers about. What are you looking at over there? Our PA. You know, you can't hire good help these days, Sterling. We're working on that. We'll have that number for you in a second.
So he signed a 2-year, $38 million extension, right, with $24 million guaranteed. $38 million, right? That is like Alex Caruso money.
I know. You're making bench money.
Think about that, though, right?
Bench, actually, well, Caruso's a starter, but bench on a really good team.
But think about that. Think about that. Christian McCaffrey is one of the best running backs in the league. He's making Alex Caruso, and that's no shade to Alex Caruso is awesome and all the things there, right? But like that's how we're kind of looking at this. And to your point, in the NFL is built differently, right? They don't allow any private equity money at the moment. It's this old boys network that's been there for like these owners and families have been there for a really, really long time. They control, to your point, they control everything.
I mean, it's 52 to 53% for the owners, 47 to 48% for the players, which is NBA players are like, we ain't doing that, because that's billions of dollars on, these single percentage difference.
Yeah, and it's tough. And it's tough for those NFL players to try to change their CBA. I know, we almost had the lockout a few years ago, right? So they can get more money there. But it's difficult. And so, yeah, I'm interested to see what happens as this kind of expands. And to your point, I saw the former owner of the Bucks, right? He sold, and I think that's why people were kind of nervous about the NBA. Like the Bucks owner, Mark Lassery, right? Sold his, I think at the time he had majority shares, sold his shares a year or so ago and got out, right? Then you also saw like Michael Rubin get out of the Sixers deal. And you're like, oh man, are people scared about what's looming in the NBA? Is the TV deal going to be bad? Obviously it's not, it's $7 billion, right? But then you're seeing, the thing is though, like I just talked about, is Mark Lassery's like, all right, well, I can go, he's trying to buy in the Angel City Women's Soccer Club out here in LA. He's like, I can go buy that for $400 million. And I bet I can build it up the way that soccer and rights and all these things are moving, how everything is shaping, right? I can get in now, and in a decade, that's going to be worth $1 billion, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're making great points. And I think the scary part that obviously, like you said, you have to be in a certain asset class, which I think is a little disappointing, because the way that these, if your stadium is funded with any percentage tax dollars, I think that it's in your subsidized by whatever percentage tax dollars. I think it should be mandatory that residents, constituents in that area should have some type of investment opportunity, because if you're going to get wealthy, but you're living up in the Hollywood Hills, and I'm over here living next to the stadium, I'm dealing with why can't I have the access rights as well to be able to make some money off the backs of these teams, instead of me always donating now for these packages that you have for tickets. And then I also think that because I'm taking I know it's pennies to the dollar for what you're getting as a shareholder for the Packers, but that concept I still think it should be mandatory, I think, for all leagues. Letting the city have ownership, or folks within the city have some type of ownership, whether that's a 2% stake. I just think that personally allows for wealth to be grown by the retail investor out here, because not everybody's going to be able to have
the retail investor.
Here's my point though. That's the point though. Not everybody's going to have access. You and I don't have access to $100 million, but if there's an opportunity for us to pull however many thousands to be able to contribute and be a true minority within the Hawks, I would love to do that. And then say that turns in like 10 years and that goes up however many dollars, that's $100,000. You're like, you know what? It's good for us to sell because we need this money at this moment or something like that. But it allows folks that don't have the hundreds of millions of dollars to at least be able to invest in their team and make some type and recoup some type of benefit as well, to be able to shift your landscape, to be able to shift your position right now in life and try and have that smart investment if you're able to do that. That's my only point. I'm not saying they need to be a large investor. I just think it should be open, as well as if you're going to be taking tax dollars from the city or the county, however they work that. But then my last point to that is just like, I'm also concerned with, because I'm just going devil's advocate right now, because I love sports, but I think the way the sports is going, you look at the secondary market. Hey, we'll take secondary market out. You look at the face value when you're looking at tickets. It's absurd for what a lot of people have to pay. Now, compare that to where we were able, as we can say it personally from our own experience. We're a family of 4, family of 3, going to the Braves games, going to the Falcons games. Obviously, your salaries were keeping up better than they are today with where inflation was supposed to be at and what's supposed to be representative for your salaries and families to be able to have the expenditures or the extra money to have these expenditures and go and have fun as a unit. You can't do that now. You're pricing out folks that are true fans of the game for mainly a lot of the corporate aspects. And because you're like, you know what, we're going to get these dollars, especially to say if you wanted to rent a suite for your family and bring cousins and we're all going to go to the game, you ain't going to be able to afford that. I will tell you that right now, especially if it's a good game. You can go for a random game, but if you're like, hey, I want to take.
That's just like how things work, right? That's just how, unfortunately, how things. I mean, I think that's how everything is moving.
Right. Well, we shouldn't be saying unfortunately, though. That's the thing. We should be saying, you know what? It's actually within a fair price range. Maybe I got to scrounge up a little bit more, but the price itself is not. It's not something astronomical or something so out of reach. I think where we're going. Would you by yourself for Vegas pay for the 3-day weekend for F1 or for Miami at that? Either or. Would you pay for the 3-day weekend? Because it amounts to, if you don't, so the price point, I want to say minimum for bad ticket. I think for general.
Yeah, I mean, I think the tough thing is like, I think you have to weigh
a few thousand.
What is your, like, what do you care about? Is that something that you need to do? Mm-hmm. I think that's to your point. That is unfortunate. I think is the right word. It's unfortunate that I think we're putting people in a position that are true sports fans to think about. Well, like, is this going to be like my Christmas present to myself, or like, to however you want to like view it, right? Or is this, or for to your point, it has become very corporate. It has become very like ultra, like kind of catering to the rich, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's just where things are moving now. I do think about it from like an everyday perspective. Mm-hmm. Like I've told this, I think I've told this on this podcast. Like, I went to a Dodger game one day to see a buddy play, and I'm sitting there and I'm in like a pretty nice seat. And then a family of like 5 is next to me. And you can tell like this was their day at the park, and that's awesome. Then I just started doing the math. I was like, all right, so 5 tickets at like $100+. So that's you're already at $500 plus parking is $40. The dad had a beer. The beer there is $22. You get food for everybody. I mean, by the time you get out of the stadium, you're probably as a family of 5, you're at like $1,000 for one day. So yeah, can the average family afford to kind of be there? And I would say the average family typically is like the more diehard people. They're the people that truly kind of love sports, right?
Right.
And I think you start to take away the aspect of like true fans and like what fandom is,
right?
Just because you're pricing people out. But I also just think like that's what's happening in life in general. And I don't know how that resets, right? I don't know how it comes back until people kind of push back and start to say, hey, we're not going to pay these prices, right? Which
I agree. I wish there would be one day that you could coordinate. You probably couldn't do it on Twitter now because Elon would shut it down in the algorithm so that it wouldn't gain steam. But if everybody decided, like we decided on the day, like there was those couple days back, like however many years ago, where everybody's like, hey, we're going to turn our lights off so everybody can see the stars. It was like, whatever. It's for Earth Day, essentially. Like, turn your lights off. Actually, it happened last year. They do it every year, but it hasn't gotten pumped up as wide as it used to be. But like everybody coming along and saying, you know what? I'm not buying airplane tickets for this month. We're not buying sports packages because the only way that you can change it is if everybody comes together as a unit, which will never happen.
We're
not paying. It will never happen. But
you have to like what you have to see is the fact that like you have to make a dent in the revenue, right?
You have to.
I always say this. I say this, and this goes to politics. This goes to anything that you're thinking about, right? Like, if you want to make a change, specifically in America, you have to change the finances of it, the financial aspect of it.
If you're hurting our wallets, we'll actually listen. That's you're right, 100%.
Right, and so like I think within what you're asking for is like, hey, how do we make sure that the middle class kind of family is kind of protected? And I don't see how that's possible. To be honest,
Al, you're 100% right. I don't see where the paradigm would shift here. I don't see where you're going to have the spectrum shift here. And there's one way. I do like how Steve Ballmer is allowing. They're calling it the ultimate wall pass for future Clippers fans. So you can buy a $1,200 package for the year. Amazing, and you're able to stand in the wall, which is like their student S section their standing section, so you can have a good home court environment. Correct me if I'm wrong if you see the price, but you can have a home court advantage for the Clippers in their future home in their new arena. And I think that's cool. And I think that's great. Now you're allowing, say, recent graduates, young professionals, not necessarily the family, but hey, families or they have older kids, like, you know what, we're going to stand, we're going to do it. You have great season tickets for a low cost, and you're allowed to, hopefully you can see every single game and then work whatever for the postseason. So I think that could be a model that could change. I thought it was really cool by Author Blank. Obviously, if you've been to Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, they have family-friendly pricing, family-friendly fares, I believe is the exact concept name. And so you can take $20 for a family of 4 and you can feed your family. But the kicker is, obviously, the ticket prices are on a dynamic scale now because the Birds were supposed to be good and they're not good, but now it works on the backside of things. So your tickets are a little bit cheaper, but you could look at $300 tickets just to, have good seats, because that third level is giving you vertigo. The way they build these stadiums now are so steep when you get up into that upper bowl. It is the true nose. If I trip, there's no lawsuit that I can have. I'm dead. I'm falling harder than what's his name? The Dark Knight Manoni. What is that guy? Or who's the gangster that he dropped off the wall or dropped off the ledge from like 3 stories and his legs were splattered like Jimmy from South Park. That's how I would look, but I'm just dead. That's how high these 300 levels are now. It's just so steep. So yeah, that's my concern when it comes to the future of investing in sports and private equity. Here's the big kicker, and this is what everybody's been trying to figure out, and I think it's going to be coming soon because it's the only way that you can genuinely have a cohesive landscape for this sports world, and that is college football. I said this pods ago. We can go back, we can backtrack and find it. I believe at some point in time, you're going to have an offer that can't be refused, and it's going to go to the SEC to start off with. Say they're already trying to do like the SEC and Big Ten kind of merger being one league because those are the 2 dominant leagues. You're going to have, whether if it's how the IBF or whatever that the Saudi fund is that is already trying to merge the PGA, they're going to come in with something that's saying, hey, we have this package, which you have a guaranteed revenue split of $100 million per team per year, something like that, something crazy. And they will handle the rights and get the recoup from the ESPNs. They're going to because that's how they'll control the landscape by recouping it through TV rights. At some point in time, a firm is going to come in and change the landscape of college sports because it's already headed in that Wild Wild West direction. And then if you have that where schools don't have to fight over pennies in the breakdown for the revenue split that they're currently doing, and you're seeing the ACC deal with, somebody's going to come in and say, you know what, I will pay for the 33. We'll pay for the 33 million that you're owed back to the ACC, or we'll just never pay it. Cause what's the ACC going to like? That's another conversation, but you're going to have somebody come in and say, we can shift the landscape back for college sports to be the regional powerhouse that it's supposed to be. So you can have those traditional rivalries underneath this umbrella. Here's how the money payout will work. We'll deal with the TV rights. All you have to do is just worry about putting a good product in payment, or good product out on the field and out on the court, potentially, maybe on the baseball field as the big 3. And then everything else will take care of itself. So you're going to see that, I think, in the near future because the NCAA is doomed and it's a dead man walking right now. Doc Holliday is about to pop around the corner saying, I'll be your Huckleberry, and pop one in them, and the NCAA is gone.
I don't know about all that, but I do think what's going to happen is they're just going to have to go to a one tier, right? Which changes everything. But yeah, I think no, that's a good discussion there on just like where things are.
Yeah. Great topic.
Yeah, we'll put out some stuff on our socials. There's some cool. I saw this kind of article that kicked us off by Yield Street, which kind of talks about some of the private equity and has a couple cool graphs. So we'll put that on Twitter and on Instagram. So continue to kind of follow us there at Seed Talk Podcast. We'll close up here.
If you want the article, subscribe to your Sports Tech Atlanta, because Sports Tech Atlanta will be releasing kind of a, your monthly newsletter, which will include this, so you can make sure to not miss any update when it comes to the pod and also to the articles that we talk about, so you can read through them at your own leisure.
Good point too. We'll close out here with Caitlin Clark, and I think
we got 6 minutes, so we got to make it good. 6-7 minutes, we got to make it good.
What I will say is it has been, I don't think people have given enough credence to the fact that you have ultra competitive women like Diana Taurasi or Brianna Stewart or an Asia Wilson, who have been doing this for a long time, right? And I think what's always tough in sports, and go back and look at interviews when like LeBron came in the league, right? They asked Carlos Boozer, they're like, what do you guys think about LeBron being on your team and being kind of like, what do you, the new face of the league? And Carlos Boozer's like, we already got a small forward, right? Like, don't think people, and I don't know if it's because we're talking about women. Is it because we're talking about a league that is predominantly Black women? Like, in some way, we've forgotten that we're talking about competitive people within a sport. Mm-hmm. And Caitlin Clark, rightfully so, garnered all of this attention. Nike gave her a huge deal. But you've got people that have been doing this for a long time that did not that they shouldn't, or that they shouldn't have gotten any of the attention, anything like that, but they didn't at the time, right? Right, like women's basketball has always been kind of overshadowed and overlooked, right? And so you've got these people being like, all right, well, like, I'm going to show you that she's not as good as you all think she is. That is like true competitiveness. That is what you should want in any respect, right? Right. And instead of people looking at everything around it just in that lens, it becomes this really weird conversation around race and about Black and white, and the fact that she, like, are people being mean to her and all this other stuff, and you're like, but we're talking about basketball, right? And I don't know, and I mean, obviously you just have bad actors out there, right? We know who those people are that will use anything to try to divide us from like a racial perspective. But I think that's just been kind of wild just to think about, just to see people's comments and to think like, but do you not think that these, but then for me, it's like you aren't even thinking as these women who are professionals as athletes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think
it's just a weird thing for me to watch.
No, I think it's really, it's a little concerning when I've seen some of the conversations out there, because I think there's only one good conversation that I've seen that they really, to me, hit the nail on the head. It was real quick, and it was, Tony Kornheiser and Mike Wilbon. And, the conversation really is twofold, because two things can be true at the same time, which people aren't allowing when you're discussing in this space. Mm-hmm. And on one hand, it is, you have the basketball side of things. And then it goes to the conversation that you're talking about of the polarization of what she's been able to do. But then also you have to have the conversation of, for the league, at least the WNBA. So what she's been able to do in college and what hype that brings in. But then also what is currently been done in the WNBA and what has transpired in the past and who's currently playing and the greats that are there in that conversation. But then on the flip side, on the second portion is obviously it's a racial component that makes up what has then, I think, taken and turned a great story and turned it and made it into a sour conversation and a very contentious conversation. And both of these things can live true. And on the race side of things, you have an athlete that is shooting the lights out of the ball and looking like a Steph Curry. And what does Steph Curry do on the men's side of thing? It's completely turned the NBA and the game on its head. You got 5-year-olds in Little League basketball coming down and trying to pull up tray balls. You have high schoolers thinking they can emulate the same thing. And you would hope when it comes to Caitlin Clark and the media attention that she's gotten, that you're like, oh, that might even change the game in the women's sport too. Like, I've already seen Steph, but now you got her. Like, I'm coming down to shoot and doing bad basketball, in my opinion, because only if you're Steph, you can come down and do that. But with the racial component, it comes down to well, why is there that coverage being given to this person so much more so than what you had and how they were covered, say, for Angel Reese down in LSU? And you have to say, who is the largest demographic in America is white America. And when they have a player, like you said, when it comes into the WNBA in a league that's predominantly black, and you have somebody that they can resonate and see themselves in, there's nothing wrong with people having the opportunity to reflect and being like somebody I can gravitate towards. Why do you think Eminem went real big? Because white folks were like, you know what? It's the first time we had somebody in this game. He's not bad. I like his bars. I'm gonna hop into it. But then you also, like you said, you have that crowd, that negative crowd that's coming in, and they're the racial disruptors because that's who they want to be. It's a stain on the underbelly of society. Shouldn't be anywhere involved or anywhere near the conversation or have their voices or philosophies be elevated. But unfortunately, you have that happen, and you're seeing that permeate itself within the conversation. But it can be true that she is getting coverage because due to the skin tone and what resonates with the crowd. It'd be the same sense of having LeBron jumping into, or let's just go with Bill Russell back in the day, and you're having the African American crowd being like, I am supporting my player because, one, I see myself in him. They're a great player as well, and I want to see them succeed. And so that is a conversation that can wholeheartedly exist in this. And then on the flip side of things, on the second part, just the basketball conversation, you're having somebody that is polarizing. But you have to also then, this goes to why somebody's getting more TV coverage than the previous players, is because of that marketability that Nike is seeing. How can we maximize dollars? What did we talk about just a second ago? If you listen to our earlier segment, the influx of cash, how can we get return on our investments out here when we're making shoes, when we're being strategic? And if she's being connecting and it is resonating, we're going to ride this horse. And it's a tale as old as time, riding somebody till they're dead, Secretariat out here, basically. And so, but then you can have genuine emotion of being like, you know what? I'm Asia Wilson. I've been dominating. I won championships in college. Mm-hmm. I'm winning a championship here with the Las Vegas Aces. I'm not getting that coverage, but I'm going to still play my butt off. But I'm going to still say, you know what? When I see this, when we play each other, I'm going to knock a block off, because why? That's the competitor in me. And I want y'all to see who I am. And so hopefully in turn, it can be a net positive for everybody, because you have women that have played so well in this league for so long, and now they're reaping the benefits of the league being at the point, at this crossroads of being able to propel itself into the next level. And you have somebody of Caitlin Clark who's now entering into this space that can now hopefully continue to take this league because of the garnered attention that she's seeing. And so I think everybody should look at it as, how can we benefit each other? I think it's unfortunate on the Caitlin Clark side, because she's had to answer for stuff she's never said. And then obviously everybody wants you to come out and say and be the social justice warrior if you're not a part of the community and you're coming into a community that you're not necessarily the majority in, and you're the minority. So we want to make sure that we can invite you to the cookout. But that's how social media and everybody's trying to shifting conversations. But that's what some people want as well. But what we have to do is, let's take the nonsense out of everything. Let's talk about it. Like you're saying, I don't like, and this is what concerned me, I don't like a lot of the conversations of kind of as if you're coddling grown women and how you want to talk about the sport, which I think in a way is misogynistic, in a way of, we're talking about let's say we're talking about the USA team and leaving Caitlin Clark off, but what is the conversation never revolving around? Who are you taking off? You're talking about, hey, we're using marketability, where you can do X, Y, Z with this player, but we're not saying on a basketball level what this person is going to do versus the next person. And I think that conversation itself that's not being had, although I respect a lot of talking heads that have done it, I don't think they're giving the respect to the women that have been on these that are on the team and the stats that they're doing. Let's look at it from an X's and O's. Caitlin Clark wasn't shooting that well. And then they were like, oh, Diana Taurasi came in the league, but everybody wants, she was winning championships, but look what she was doing her rookie year. Maya Moore, the same thing. So let's talk X's and O's. Let's talk statistics. And then let's go off of that and have the conversation, not saying, well, this woman, yes, she is a world-class athlete, and it is a good conversation to have. But if we're being and representing Team USA, wouldn't you say to yourself, if this was the men's side, I want this gold medal because I want to see this team represent as best as possible and bring back the coveted gold that everybody seeks a lifetime for when we go to the Olympics? You get one shot every 4 years. I know she's young, so she have an opportunity, and it's putting a fire and a hunger in her. And I think these conversations have been missed by a lot of folks. It's concerning for how people have to, it seems, coddle women as some innate, I have to protect and talk about women in a certain way when they're grown. We're talking about grown women. Talk about grown women. How you going to talk about grown men? You know, don't shift it because you think that you have to somehow protect women in your conversation, because now you are doing something in a negative that, you know, women, as an African-American male, I don't want you to talk and act like you have to protect me. Thing that I hate, I go out, there's things that annoy me. I'm out of the golf course. I'll hit a ball. Somebody's like, you know what? You don't play all the time. Hit another. No, don't. Why are you taking it upon yourself to look like you need to look out after me? That you don't know what I've been doing. I don't need that. I didn't ask you for that opinion. So why are we doing that in turn to a lot of these women in this conversation? And that's the thing that's upsetting. But let's have the conversation. You and I have talked about this off air. Let's flip this back. Let's just talk about basketball. And let's let that conversation. Yes, drama stirs. Yes, drama brings eyeballs. But let's just talk ball. You know what I mean? And that's going to continue because drama is great. We love the drama in the NBA. And I'll stop. I went 4 or 5 minutes. Sorry. We love the drama, but let's let the drama be wrapped around basketball truly and having that conversation, and not the way that it's, for lack of better words, been perverted a little bit out here in how we're discussing all these women between the Angel Reese and the Caitlin Clarks of the world. Let's just talk ball. You know what I mean?
It's so funny you say that. I had a moment like that. You know, when you play solo golf, like, or you show up to the course by yourself and you like book a tee time, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was having one of those, you know, I hadn't played in a while. I was having one of those bad days. And this guy, and like typically I'm pretty good around the green from like a chipping perspective. And I just like, you know, you haven't played in a while. So I like scold a couple, like through the green or whatever, right? And this guy's like, yeah, the more you play, I mean, you know, sometimes just putt it off the green. You putt it, you know, just when you're just off the green. I was like, you don't know me.
Yeah,
like,
I didn't ask you.
You don't know how many times I've played this game. Like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? Like,
right.
What?
Right.
And I feel like that does happen a lot for Black people in golf. I wanted to add that.
Right.
So, no, it's a good conversation. I mean, I agree. I think we could probably go on for many minutes on this. I think at the end of the day, I think it's allowing her the ability to continue to get better. And I think letting people be competitors at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And the WNBA has awesome competitive women that have been doing this for a long time who are really, really good. And we should also kind of be talking, I hope, what you hope happens is the more that you talk about Caitlin, the more that she is able to elevate the women's game. You're then able to see like, oh, there's also people that have been doing this for a long time. And hopefully they also start to get their credit and, you know, their accolades as well within the conversation.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
I closed this out, and then we ran along with a couple topics, but hope you all enjoyed. Follow Taylor over there at TaylorMac29. Follow me at SteveMac. And you can find clips of all of this at Seed Talk Podcast on YouTube, on TikTok, Instagram. And as Taylor said as well, go to sportstakeatlanta.com. Check out our blog, which will have articles and different things of some of the topics that we have up, as well as kind of a recap of this podcast here. And we'll see you on the next edition of the Seed Talk Podcast.